Hey guys, Alex here from TitanBearGaming.com, at TitanBearGaming on social media. Just this last week, we got the newest campaign of Critical Role started up. We got the premiere of Season 2, I think they're calling it, for Critical Role. Still DM'd by Matt Mercer and still played by all the usual characters, but now we've got brand new characters and a brand new storyline that takes place some number of years after the events of the previous campaign, and we get a lot of new stuff. All the new characters are starting out at level 2, so everyone's back down to a low, much more tractable power level, and everybody's on a different class, basically learning the game again with some new class features this time. I'm as excited as can be about this new campaign. I think it's going to be a great way to get some new people back into watching the show. I think people found it a little formidable picking up a 100 plus episode storyline before, so I think we're going to get a lot of new folks showing up for this one. And honestly, I'm over the moon about the different kinds of characters that we've got. I've been retweeting community art for the different new characters that are there, so you can follow that on my Twitter to see what those things are. People have come up with some wonderful things. I'm really excited for it. But what I wanted to do to start us off in terms of our video here is to actually do a deep dive on the Blood Hunter class. A little bit of a spoiler, Taliesin Jaffe is playing a Blood Hunter in this new campaign. The Blood Hunter class is something that Matt Mercer wrote himself, and he published up on the dmsguild.com website. It's going, I think it's a pay what you want kind of thing to pick it up, but Taliesin is playing it, and so I figured most of the community wouldn't actually know what the Blood Hunter is. You may be aware that it exists, but not what its powers are. So I figured we would go into it. I'm going to do separate videos for the base class and then other videos for the archetypes, but I'm going to release all of them all at the same time. There's a lot here, right? The Blood Hunter is not a simple class. If you've been watching any of my other videos for character archetypes, for class archetypes, and different kind of options that are available, I think I'm going to start employing a rating system based on the ease of use for these characters, the kind of game knowledge that would be required for a player to want to pick this one up. I'm going to start doing more reviews of homebrew stuff, so I think this will be helpful going forward. My thought is I'm going to break my ranking down into 3 basic tiers: Goblin, Ogre, and Dragon. And like I said, it's going to be based on how difficult or complex the class is and how much game knowledge should be necessary for someone to really play it well. To start us off, it's only fair. The Blood Hunter I'm already rating as a Dragon level class. It's a big thing. There's a lot of meat to this. The printout is already 8 pages long, which makes it one of the longest classes that's been created in terms of the player handbook or Xanathar's guide or anything. There's a lot to it. So I would say if you're a dungeon master and you have a player that's considering picking this up and playing it, if they're new, they're going to require some serious help to play it. And otherwise, I would only recommend this for advanced players. So let's go ahead and get started delving into the Blood Hunter. What's the thematic element for the Blood Hunter? Now, Matt Mercer defined this as a very Inquisitor style, which is kind of fun and interesting, where you have a very strong attunement to pursuing magical monsters or supernatural monsters or fiends or fae or things like this. It's kind of an interesting nod to the Witch Hunter, as Matt debuted this for his Dungeons and Dragons with Vin Diesel thing, as well as for kind of more of a Geralt style character from the Witcher series, all of which is very relevant to Matt Mercer, so it actually makes a lot of sense why he would be writing something like this. It's interesting. The basic idea for it thematically is that you have to become what you are seeking in order to best hunt them, in order to best kill them, in order to best put them down, deal with these creatures, etc. And that kind of thematic element flows through the entirety of the archetypes that are available for the Blood Hunter. It also centers on the concept of blood magic and the ability to perform kind of an intrinsic blood ritual or a blood rite in order to curse your enemy or to be able to empower your magical attacks or whatever else. The Blood Hunter is a fighter style character. I think that it emphasizes very heavily kind of the Pact of the Blade style warlock. There's a lot of warlock-y features that show up here in this one. You start out the game with a D10 hit die, and there's a lot of things that are kind of make the class a parallel to the Eldritch Knight from the fighter class without being too strongly an Eldritch Knight and without being too strongly a Warlock either. So I think it's a really strong class. There's a lot that goes on in here. The only sin is that it kind of can do most of everything, minus healing or whatever else, but from a melee character that has a lot of hit points, that can deal a lot of damage and can cast spells and do all that, it kind of dabbles into the insidious territory of I'm a one-man team, but I think that it's padded very heavily by a really well-defined thematic element. I really give a lot of props to everybody's best friend, Dungeon Master Matt Mercer, for this. He did a really great job coming up with the thematic element for this character. I would play it at my table. I just think there's a lot that players need to know going into it. So let's tackle some of the basics for the class. We have, like all of our other classes, we have a big class table that goes with it. And I'm going to skip over that for now. We'll cover each of the individual things when we're going through the different features that we have. He has a piece here for what you want to think about for making a Blood Hunter. The quick build, you're going to be either a strength-based fighter or a dexterity-based fighter type character for this. So those are probably going to be your primary stat. Anything that you're doing that involves one of your blood rights or one of your powers or spellcasting or abilities uses the wisdom modifier. So that's cool. We have another wisdom spellcaster for this. And then he also says that you should really prioritize constitution as your third stat, your tertiary stat for your character, because you're going to be doing things that self-inflict damage, which is not a mechanic that we otherwise see across 5th edition, but I like how it's built in here. We'll talk more about that as we go. To start that off, actually, you have a D10 for your hit die, which is really big. That makes you equivalent to a fighter in terms of how much raw hit points you're going to be working with, and is actually really critical because of the self-inflicting thing that I was just mentioning, but we'll get there. So you start out of the D10 hit die, and it's all the usual jam of adding a con modifier and all that goodness. There's nothing weird there. Proficiencies, you get light armor proficiency, medium armor proficiency, and shields, just like a regular fighter, so that's cool. You get simple weapons and martial weapons, fine. Alchemist's supplies for your tools proficiency, thematic, it's appropriate for this. There's a discussion in the thematic text for the Blood Hunter, which is that in order to become a Blood Hunter, you have to imbibe this poisonous concoction that fundamentally alters your being and your definition. We channel the alchemy aspect that a lot of people like from prior versions of Dungeons and Dragons, mutagens and potions and whatnot. You do get some of that in here, so that's kind of cool. Your saving throw proficiencies are strength and wisdom, consistent with the abilities that was suggested for your quick build, the kinds of things that you're going to be good at as this character, so that's not too bad. Your skills are nice too. You get to choose 2 from athletics and acrobatics, normal, arcana, insight, investigation, and survival. I like these. The only knowledge-based ones that you've got are arcana and survival, which is cool, and I think that's fitting for kind of a supernatural inquisitor. That's kind of nice. I like the selection that we have here. I don't feel like there's anything that's weird in this listing. Your starting equipment is also pretty typical in terms of a martial-oriented / casting character. Martial weapon or 2 simple weapons, some kind of ranged weaponry, studded leather armor or scale mail armor, depending on how much of a disadvantage on your dexterity you want to take to begin with. So at first level, we get the power Hunter's Bane. This one's interesting. This one refers to the imbibing of that poisonous material that I had mentioned before as part of your creation as a blood hunter. It's called your Hunter's Bane. It's a poisonous alchemical concoction that alters your lifeblood and changes you from the inside. The powers that you get from it are you get advantage on survival checks to track fae, fiends, and undead. Those are kind of your 3 things that you're built to track down and kind of identify. As well as you also get advantage on any intelligence checks to recall information about them. If you're actively tracking one of these types of creatures, you cannot be surprised by creatures of that type. You can only be tracking one type of creature at a time. Cool, so we get kind of our ranger element for having something of a favored enemy, but it's kind of in a more limited capacity, but it's still pretty nice. Upon reaching 11th level, you can flare the internal toxic scars from the ritual, causing the pain to give you clarity and promote your anger. You can suffer damage equal to a roll of your Crimson Right damage die, which we'll talk about. It's a big thing for your class, to get advantage on an insight check or an intimidation check. Cool, it works out. Also at first level, you pick up your Crimson Right power, and this is a meat and potatoes kind of ability. You're going to be doing this all the time as your character character. It really defines your Blood Hunter aspect. And what it basically means is you get to sacrifice a little bit of your own vitality. You're going to inflict some hit point damage on you equal to your character level to activate kind of a flaming sword or elemental damage or something else along these lines. Now, when you pick this up as a bonus action, you get to self-inflict some damage to you equal to your character level. It reduces your current hit points by that much, and it reduces your maximum hit points by that much. So you just lower the amount of hit points that you basically have in order to do this. And in doing so, it imbues magic damage onto the weapon that you're going to be fighting with. And you get to pick which ones you're going to do. You have fire, cold, or lightning. And then as you level up, you can go for the higher ones of thunder, psychic, and necrotic to get the more rare damage resistances and vulnerabilities and things. Something that's important to understand is when you pick this, you have to deal with that one until 6th level. You get your second one at 6th level and another one at 11th level, and then your last one at 14th level. Only one of the other archetypes available for this class grants you an additional right, so it's important to know which one you're going to pick here, which thematic elements you want to channel. At 2nd level, you also pick up fighting style, and this is just like the normal one for the fighter, where you get to choose archery or dueling, great weapon fighting, or 2-weapon fighting, and it functions exactly the same way. So that's good. We can already see that we're already going to be channeling our fighter martial character pretty strongly for this class. Now, the last major thing that you pick up for the Blood Hunter, you get at 2nd level, which is called Blood Maledicte. This is your ability to cast a blood curse on somebody. And it's cool that you get this core feature at 2nd level, so you're going to be doing this all throughout the game. You don't have to wait terribly long to get this sweet feature. There's a lot of different powers for it. Now, just like your Crimson Rite and like a lot of the Eldritch invocations that the Warlock gets, you have to pick which one of these you're going to do, and you have kind of a limited number of them that you're going to learn over the course of playing your character. You get one when you pick this up at 2nd level, and you get to pick another one at 5th, 9th, 13th, 16th, and 20th. So you actually are going to get about 5 by the end, which is pretty strong. The different options that are here are actually really nice. I think Matt Mercer did a great job in designing these. It kind of has a similar feel to how the Elemental Monk operates, in that you channel your innate power to kind of cast a spell or to apply some kind of low-grade condition or something like that. But the ones that he selected here feel a lot more powerful and a lot more useful than the Way of the Elements Monk. So I like it. Again, big props to Matt Mercer for how he's actually defined these. It's critical to know that anytime you're doing one of your blood curses, you also have the ability to amplify your blood curse. Now, that means that there's a regular effect that happens when you use the blood curse, and most of these blood curses are used on bonus actions or reactions. So they're nice things that you can do in addition to casting spells or to swinging your sword or something else. It's good from that point of view. But if you want to amplify the effect to go for kind of the pumped up power of it, all you have to do is inflict some more damage on you equal to your blood right damage, which I should have specified before. Your blood right damage is the extra damage that's done from your elemental attacks, and it's equal to the damage die that's listed here on the table. It goes from 1d4 at the beginning of the game to 1d10 at the end of the game. Now, something I will point out, since we've had the Brute class, Brute archetype released for the fighter in the Unearthed Arcana just recently, this scales more aggressively than the Brute fighter does. For everybody who's crying about how much damage is done by the Brute fighter, the Blood Hunter does a lot more. Yes, it has the payoff that in order to inspire it, in order to actually trigger this, you have to reduce your hit points. And then if you're going to be doing your blood curses with an amplification effect, you're self-inflicting this, so there's a bit of a hit point cost. But this guy's a big, beefy sucker that's going to be putting out a lot of damage and doing a lot of interesting stuff in this game. So anyway, like I was saying, you can amplify the blood curse, this blood malediction that you're going to be doing, by self-inflicting that blood right damage to yourself. So it's important to have a good constitution score as this character, because you're going to be sacrificing a lot of your own hit points to make things happen. The major detail for the blood maledict is that you can do this every short rest. Big thing, right? You're going to be using this all the time. This is your analogy to the fighter's action surge. It's not quite as singular as the action surge, since the action surge gives you the ability to do another action of any type that you want to, and this is pretty specific, but you can do it every short rest, which means you're going to be able to do this a lot. I'm not going to go through the entire list of blood maledictions, because we could be here for hours doing that, but there's a bunch of really cool ones. Blood Cursive Binding as a bonus action. You can make somebody not be able to move. It reduces their movement speed to 0. You can amplify it by turning it into an on-running effect instead of just a single turn. Blood Cursive, the Eyeless, makes it so that anybody who is doing a weapon attack around you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage. Cool, that's pretty strong. Blood Cursive, the Fallen Puppet, when something dies around you, you can real quick stand them back up and have them make a weapon attack against something. Can be particularly useful. Blood Cursive, Mutual Suffering. If an enemy tries to do damage to you, they take half of the damage that you take. Some pretty powerful stuff. There's a lot of really cool things in here that are very thematic of this kind of, not strictly necromancy, but very warlocky, otherworldly power, blood magic style. I like it a lot so far. There's a lot of really cool things in here that I think people will like. At 3rd level, you choose what Blood Hunter order you're going to belong to. This is the normal archetype selection that every other class gets. There are 3 of them that Matt Mercer has released here. We have the Order of the Mutant, the Order of the Ghost Slayer, and the Order of the Profane Soul. And they're all really different from one another. One of them focuses on fighting with a weapon, the other one focuses on spell casting, and the last one focuses on the Alchemist Mutagen Mutant style. They're very different. Like I said, I'm going to do different videos on each one, but at 3rd level is when you make that selection. As of right now, Taliesin hasn't made his selection for which character he's going to be playing, so it'll be interesting to see where he decides to go with this. You pick up ability score improvements at the rate that the slower ability score improvement classes operate. So this is where we deviate a little bit from our normal fighter that gets kind of a twice the rate of normal ability scores. Here you pick it up at every 4th level increment, more or less. 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19. As a reminder, the fighter picks one back up at 6, and he picks one up at 14th, so he gets a couple of additional boosts that we don't get here in the Blood Hunter. At 5th level, however, we pick back up of our normal fighter style of extra attack at 5th level, where when you take the attack action, you get to attack 2 times. That's good. It's very critical for anybody that's going to be swinging a weapon out in the game for your power scaling. It's important to get this at 5th level. At 9th level, we get a cool thematic power called Grim Psychometry. Yeah, interesting word, right? At 9th level, you pick this up and you get the ability to take 10 minutes to meditate on an object to discern vague details concerning any kind of evil or dark acts that may have been perpetrated on or using or around the item, which I really like this style. I think that this is an interesting augury technique. It's an interesting divination kind of power that gives you kind of a, not necessarily future telling since it's going to be past inclined, but it gives you a supernatural ability to stay on the trail of some kind of dark or demonic creature. I think it's cool. You make a wisdom check when you're doing this, and based on the results, the DM can reveal obscure information pertaining to that object. It's cool. It's an interesting thing that I think the phrasing for this, making it deliberately vague, helps us to avoid our usual trouble for insight checks revealing too much information. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I harp a lot on 5th edition Dungeon Masters giving impossible information for people to have learned as a result of their insight checks. So this one's cool. I think that our phrasing for this has set this skill up, or this power up, pretty well to be used in a believable way that's still very thematically intrinsic to this character. At 10th level, we pick up Dark Velocity, which basically makes you a little better fighter in the game. You gain dark vision out to 30 feet, a little more friendliness, or a little more feeling a little more at home while you're in the darkness. As well as if you have dark vision, it extends it by 30 feet, so it's not just a redundancy. And while you're in dim light or darkness, your speed increases by 10 feet. Great, big for melee fighters. And attacks of opportunity made against you have disadvantage. This is a really powerful steroid ability. You pick it up at 10th level, which fits, I think, in terms of being able to pick this kind of thing up. I think everybody will like having this. As well as at 14th level, you pick up Hardened Soul, which makes you immune to frightened, as well as having advantage on saving throws against charm effects. You kind of get a mental stability thing thrown into this that makes you more difficult to fear or charm. Again, very thematically appropriate with being kind of a magical or supernatural Inquisitor style, Hunter style. At 20th level, you pick up your Sanguine Mastery power, and just like all the other 20th level powers, it's the very end of the game. It usually does something that's huge in terms of affecting your combat abilities or your thematic ability. In this one, you get to harness your pain when you are below 1/4 of your current maximum hit points, all of your Crimson Right damage dice are just maximized flat out. So you're going to be doing a lot of Crimson Right damage, especially if you're dual wielding Crimson Right weapons, which you do have to suffer the hit point penalty 2 times if you do dual wield Crimson Right weaponry. This lets you just maximize out the damage anytime that you are below 1/4 of your hit points, which is pretty low. A lot of the other powers for this take effect at under half of hit points, but since this is damage and affects your damage output by a lot, I think it makes sense for it to be 1/4. Additionally, anytime that you crit with a weapon that bears your Crimson Right, you regain a use of your Blood Maledicte feature, which is nice. I think this is cool. I think that it helps you to do more Blood Hunter at 20th level. You get to do more of it, which I think is the kind of thing that we want to be channeling for 20th level when you're at that superpower godly status for your character at 20th level. So that does it for the base class. There are 3 archetypes that are available. I'm going to cover each one in a separate video right now, but this is our baseline, right? What you basically got is you've got a warlock style character that's very heavily oriented towards the Pact of the Blade style, right? You have a D10 hit die. You've got the ability to turn on fire damage or ice damage or whatever kinds of elemental damage to do extra damage with your weapon swings. You've got medium armor. You've got proficiency in all of the different kinds of weapons that we have. You're going to be prioritizing your constitution as this character, since anytime that you inflict your blood right to turn on your flaming sword or whatever, you inflict your character level of damage to yourself. So you're going to be focusing very heavily on your constitution, as well as being able to cast these blood curses, and they're very cool powers, shutting enemies down, bolstering your allies, bolstering yourself, doing cool things like this. We're going to go into each of the different kinds of archetypes because those archetypes do have a tremendous bearing on your overall character. That's why I call this a dragon tier, the highest level of complexity, as well as requiring a level of game knowledge, because those archetypes give you things like transforming your physical character in more significant ways than the druid does it, and casting spells just like a warlock. It fundamentally alters the way you're going to play this character. So anyway, we'll get to that. Let me know what you think of this. I hope that this is helpful in terms of getting people a baseline to understand what Taliesin is doing in the game. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you've been playing this yourself. Where do you see this? I'm curious to know how Matt Mercer is going to be making changes to this now that it's actually showing up in his campaign and in his adventure. He just recently made a change to this, so this is updated post Xanathar's guide. There's actually a reference to Xanathar's guide in the text here. So this is up to date right now. I don't know if he's going to be making any changes as we go and as we're seeing Taliesin playing at the table. Fortunately, Taliesin already has a track record of playing one of Matt Mercer's other classes that he custom wrote, his gunslinger class. So I'll probably do a video for that one after this, just as a throwback. But yeah, it's real fun and it's real exciting. Leave me a comment, share the video with somebody that you know and that you like and think might be interested in finding out what all is in the Blood Hunter, and subscribe to the channel so you know when I'm going to be putting stuff up. Otherwise, come talk to me over on social media at Titan Bear Gaming. Go check out the other videos on archetypes. All right, until next time I see you, have more fun, would you? It's good for you.